Okay, so you've built your starter and have at least 100 grams. You have selected your ingredients, hopefully good organic bread flour, and you're ready to get started to make your first loaf. So this is how we do it. First of all, I'm going to measure out my starter. I'm going to tare the scale to make it back to 0. I've rinsed my bowl with a little bit of water. It kind of helps the starter to release a little easier. Not necessary, but it's just a little tip. Then with my wet spatulas, I'm going to pull out 100 grams of my starter. Oh, got a little too much. Okay, that's fine. We'll put it back and we'll use it for the next loaf. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact. I'm sure when the pioneers were making bread, they didn't have a scale to weigh things out to the last gram. There we go. Okay, scraping that off. Put the lid back on there and save it for later. Now, I'm going to tare my scale again. This is 320 grams of reverse osmosis water, distilled water, same thing. 320 grams. And I'm going to put my starter in the bowl. You want to scrape it all off your spatula because that's part of the recipe. You're going to be short if you don't use all the flour that all the starter that you've got stuck on your spatula. Now here's the part that might get some of you uncomfortable and queasy, but I just mix it up with my hands. You can use a Danish whisk. I have 3 of them, and I don't use them for this. I like to get in there and feel when the starter is all mixed in. It won't dissolve completely. It doesn't dissolve. But this way you can tell where the lumps are. You don't have to get all the lumps out, but I just try not to leave any big lumps in there, just to help mix it together. And then I have one less thing to have to wash with all the dishes to wash. But if this makes you uncomfortable, you can use a Danish dough whip. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it looks like this. There we go. This is a dough whip. And it works good for mixing the flour in, but like I said, I like to do it with my hands. All right. Now we will add the flour. And we're going to need 500 grams of flour. And I don't want to put it directly into the bowl because I might overmix. So this is why measuring with the with grams is so much better than doing cups, because if you're measuring with cups, some people have a heavy hand. If you're measuring with this, if you're just sticking your cup into the flour like this and pushing it in, that's going to weigh differently than if you measure it with a light hand. Just going to see what this weighs. That's 141 grams. Okay, we're going to pour that back out. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. The correct way to measure flour, if you're measuring by cups, I don't know if you can see this, is to let it go into the cup very lightly and not pack it in. And then very lightly scrape the top off to make it level. Let's see what that weighs. 129. So there's a difference of 12 grams. So that's why measuring with a cup is just not accurate, because everybody measures differently, and even different brands of flour will weigh different amounts. So it's just better to do it by using grams. Then you always get the right amount. So, but there's other schools of thought. Some people don't like to do it that way, so however you like to do it. But my recipe is written in grams, so we want 500 grams. And when I'm doing a lot, I sometimes will just dump it. This way you don't have to count how many cups you're putting in there. We're just trying to get to 500. 501. Okay, oh, there, 500. Perfect. Okay. Now, this is another controversial thing. Some people say you shouldn't put the salt in until after the dough has had time to rest with water. Other people say it doesn't really matter. I have tried it both ways. I didn't see a big difference. And I just for simplicity's sake, for a beginner, I say go ahead and put the salt in. Mix it with your flour so that it doesn't make direct contact with the sourdough starter right away. This will kind of buffer it a little bit. This is a 1/2 tablespoon measure. Not all sets have a 1/2 tablespoon, but we're looking for 1.5 teaspoons. So if you have a teaspoon measure 1.5 teaspoons or 10 grams. So now we're at 510 grams. Now I just mix this together with my hands. Just a little bit. And then we don't need the scale now. We're just going to dump this right into the water. And again, this is where some people will rather use a Danish dough whip or a spatula or something. I just go ahead and mix it with my hands so I can get the feel of the flour. I can feel for dry spots, lumps. You want to get every bit of it mixed together. If your mother told you not to play with your food, just try to get that out of your head, because it's kind of fun. It doesn't take long. This is a very low hydration dough. It's only 64% hydration. A lot of sourdough recipes are between 70 and 80%. Some go even higher, but that's for professionals. I find a lower hydration is easier for beginners to work with, because this dough, while it looks really dry now, after fermenting for several hours, it's going to be very soft and pliable. And for a higher hydration dough, it has more water in it. It's going to be softer and more difficult to handle when you're trying to shape it. So you can start with this, and when you get good at shaping your loaves, you can go to a higher hydration if you want to. Basically, you don't have to ever go to a higher hydration if you don't want to. It will create more bubbles, air holes in your bread. Some people don't like air holes in their bread. It lets all the butter and the jelly drip through when you're making a sandwich, or it's a matter of personal preference. So what I'm saying is you can use this recipe forever if you want to, but there's tons of other recipes where they go to a higher hydration, and that's fine too. We want to scrape all of the dry dough off the sides. I like using a see-through bowl because you can see then as it rises, I just let it rise in the same bowl. And you can see when it's developing air bubbles, which is a good thing. That's what you want as it's proofing. Be sure and scrape the bottom, because the bottom will have dough that sticks to it. You want to scrape all of that dough and work it in. This is the hardest part out of everything, and this isn't even hard. So once you do this, it's just about done. All you're going to do is a few stretch and folds, and then it'll be ready. So once you've got it all scraped off the bottom, you can see it's a real shaggy, sticky dough right now. When I put my hands in it, it's sticking to everything, and that's okay. We're just going to let it rest, and we'll come back in 30 minutes and you'll see what a huge difference there is in just 30 minutes of it sitting here, because the dough is going to relax, the gluten is going to start to form, and it will be easier to handle, and it just keeps getting easier. Now, I've seen people make sourdough bread by just stirring it this far and not doing another thing to it until it's ready to shape into a loaf. You can do it that way. You'll get an edible loaf. If you want it a little more tender, the stretch and folds are nice and helpful for that. But you know what? If this is all that you want to invest for time and effort, you can do that. Then I cover it with a shower cap. These are available on Amazon. They're like $6 for 100 of them or something. So anyway, that just, you can use a damp towel or something. You don't want it to dry out, but we're going to wait 30 minutes and then come back and do our stretch and folds.